well. We'd like to say welcome. And we have a sad, and but at the same time, we want to talk about the legacy of Philip and Wesseh. Now, starting with each of you or any one of you, what will you say from your memory that you know about Philip Wesseh that is so unique to the profession of journalism?
First of all, my deepest sympathy to the prominent members of Brother Philip Wesseh. Wesseh and I go a very long way. Always refer to me as Big Brother. Never call me Isaac or Bantu one of these days, but always Big Brother. We were saddened to have heard about his homegoing. However, the Lord says he gave a life and take a life away. And blessed be the name of the Lord. I've spoken to his wife, Tipla, and I will get back to her again as soon as possible. One of the things that we did was when the PRC took power, the press, everything in the country was banned. At that time, Kenneth Best was then president, Lamini Warati was vice president, and I was his chaplain. And we decided to take a stand to go and prevail on the PRC, lift the ban off the PUR. It was risky. We have a few men that went with us to the mansion. Can you imagine? Philip was in the team. I was in the team too. And we went to the PRC. Very risky, but the Lord took us through and they listened to us. And in no time, they gave us the opportunity to start carrying on our reporting, but it was still risky. As we traveled along in the PUL, Philip took PUL very serious indeed. He took it very serious, which I admire him for. I mean, there were some folks who were just around not being serious. But then at all the meetings and what have you. And when we got to come to the NDPL, when those of them were elected and leadership of the country, Philip and a few others were still standing by us, working along with us to still speak out for those who could not speak for themselves and to still inform the people and impact them with information. There were a few who took a stand to do so, but there were some of those who did not do so. They decided to sell out to the government, but we didn't sell out to the government. We stood against them. And little did I know that they're going to put me in jail after the 85 episode when they had me in prison for nearly 90 days. Philip then were outside still advocating for my release from prison. There was no charge on me, but still I went to jail for 90 days. But although the brothers, man, they stood firm to support me while I was behind bars. And while we were in prison, one of our best friends and brother was killed. It was Charles Bayon. Philip and others still didn't give up. They were still speaking out. In those days, man, you could disappear easily. The brothers then didn't give up. They kept speaking until I was released from prison. But before then, Bayon was already gone. And other brothers then were already gone. Then we enter years to come. Philip then were able to establish the Inquirer newspaper. But besides that, he stood firm to always protect the press, to send out information. I mean, without fear. Well, they would ask me, "Oh, big brother, aren't you afraid?" I said, "Well, I learned my lesson from the Holy Bible. I learned it from Jesus Christ. He was the first person I gave a press conference. Like I was telling Brother Sua earlier, I said, even the so-called king at that time sent his wife in disguise to listen to this man who was speaking to the people. So I learned that lesson from Jesus Christ as being the first person to give a press conference, to be vigilant in my reporting. And I make sure that I cross all of my T's, my I's, and my D's, and what have you, to make sure that I do not go to create a story, but to report a story, to inform and educate our people. And those who do not speak for themselves, strive my best to speak for them. And Philip was always on the move, always on the move. Even in 1992, when I was at Harvard as a visiting scholar, when I went home to do a project for the university, and Mr. Prince Johnson wanted to execute Dan Brown myself, he took us. People thought that we were dead. Philip then were on the outside, reporting, informing people that our whereabouts is unknown. We went to a meeting, got yet to return. I mean, they weren't afraid. but he spoke out. So what I really admire of him was that he was always vigilant. He spoke out on issues all of the time. Always called me, big brother, I will copy after you. I said, well, then you copy me after trouble. And yeah, and he was very good. When I heard about his sickness last year, I felt bad. I kept praying for him, and I kept talking to him until he was able to leave from Ghana to go home. And later on, I got the information that he has gone to be with the Lord. It's sad in my heart, but all the good times we had together, I can never forget about it. Because he was one of those journalists who stood up for what is right. People may say this and that about him, but from my point of view, as one of the leaders of PUL, he was very good indeed.
Mr. You know,
That
yeah,
that
Mr. You know,
eulogy. Yeah. Do you
why
hear me?
so? Yes, I can
Yeah.
hear you very clear. We can hear
I'm
you.
saying I'm not sure I can match that eulogy by Brother Bantu, but I'll try.
Come on, man.
So my knowledge of Philip Wesseh really started immediately after the war. And when they did something that I still recount today as really remarkable. I wouldn't even say right after the war. It was in the 1990s. It was actually in the throes of the war. And then Philip and others decided that it was important and necessary to set up a media institution, basically to document what was going on in the country, to report on what was going on in the country, to really report on the atrocities, give an account of what was going on in the country, to serve as the mouthpiece of the Liberian people in terms of what was going on in the country. We had as you all know, it's a terrible civil war, and immediately during the war, there were media institutions that existed prior were all destroyed, and there was nobody taking account of what was going on in the country. And the fact that they had the bravery and the tenacity and the foresight, and they understood the importance of the media in exposing what was going on in the country, and by that, also advocating for accountability, advocating for peace, giving voice to civil rights institutions and organizations, and also to individuals, who were victims of the atrocities that were going on in the country. I think that was really remarkable. And Philip led the way. He led the way by establishing the Inquirer newspaper along with other people, which really existed in the country, especially in the Monrovia area, as the only independent media institution at the time. And of course, I've interacted with him a whole lot because it was around the time that I also, the Justice and Peace Commission, which at the time was just a nascent human rights group, but became one of the leading human rights organizations in the country, came into being. And we were investigating and reporting on, we were investigating human rights abuses. We wanted to advocate. We didn't have a voice, of course, because we needed the media to be able to do that, to broadcast to the people of Liberia, to broadcast to the international community what was going on in the country, to really document. And Philip's formation of the Inquirer newspaper gave us that platform and that opportunity. And that's only demonstrates the importance of the media. Philip was fearless. I told a story on Facebook in my later tribute to him.
Yes.
When I talk about how there was a time when really government security forces were going around killing people. If you criticize them, or if you belong to a warring faction that was opposed to them, that was an opportunity to eliminate you once Mr. Taylor won the elections and came to power. So his different security forces, including the police, etc., were going around killing people and blaming it on armed robbers, or were actually accusing people of being armed robbers. And there's this one story where the police reported that I believe his name was Aloysius Kier, was killed while he was engaged in armed robbery. It was risky, it was dangerous, but Philip thought it was important to tell the truth. So they reported a story from the police, but they did an editorial that said, no, it's not true that Mr. Zalosha's Kia was killed while he was committing armed robbery. He was killed at his home. And they did their investigation and they reported that. The Justice and Peace Commission, we also did our own investigation and corroborated what the Inquirer newspaper reported. Again, it was dangerous, but Philip reported that, and because of that, Philip was arrested by Police Director Joe Tate and the security forces, taken to the police headquarters. He was held there. So I, and as the information officer of the JPC, with my boss Samuel Kofi Woods and other Elizabeth Boynton from the Association of Female Lawyers of Liberia, the UN Human Rights Officer Desmond Parker, and a group of other people went there. Of course, we're all intimidated. Joe Tate said that Kofi Woods and Elizabeth Boynton, as the lawyers, should decide which of them would stay, but there would not be two lawyers at the police headquarters. And they said, why not two lawyers? So the argument is that, and they decided if we both can't be here, then none of us would be here. They left. I stayed with Philip. Philip was interrogated in the process. He was intimidated, but in it all, he remained steadfast. And that's the story I told on Facebook. But that is to demonstrate, that's just a snapshot of his tenacity and his contribution to journalism and to human rights and social justice in Liberia. So he will be very dearly missed. In my write-up, I also did say, challenge the Liberian media, that if we want to pay a tribute to Philip, we should live the principles and examples that he lived. We should not just report press releases from people or attend press conferences and say what the officials or the politicians say. We should analyze what they say. We should investigate, and we should find out the truth in the country about corruption, everything that's going on in the country, and report on it. That's the best tribute we can pay to this brother who really sacrificed a lot to make sure the Liberian media got to where it is today. It's unfortunate, and we'll miss it.
Reverend Dede?
That's great. I mean, there can be no better eulogy for Philip from the two brothers who just spoke. For anyone who knew Philip would know that he stood for what he believed in. He did not waver when it came to professional standards and ethics. I recall there was an issue we had at President. I don't know, Bantu was not there then. Maybe Alfonso can relate to this. We had a situation where journalists were covering the expired chicken, and according to the police, the journalists themselves took the expired chicken, and so how can you be covering expired chicken and you taking the expired chicken and taking it home? And so it was an interesting thing, and we ended up in court. Alice, we ended up in court. You were there, and again we had Alfonso, Justice and Peace, Tiawa, and everybody defending us. But the fact what remained with me was that Philip, even in the face of journalists being accused of taking us away expired chicken, he still stood with the journalists. He preferred them going to court rather than being jailed unceremoniously. And that stuck with me a whole lot, because some people would just condemn the journalists. They stole expired chicken, and so you are condemned. But Philip made sure he was there with the journalists, supporting them, but at the same time questioning why you go cover expired chicken and be a part of the story rather than reporting the story. So Philip really stood for what he believed in. He was down to earth. I remember when I came in the press, I contested for the Secretary General position, but Philip was not on my side. He was with Nagwest Law. But guess what? Ellis and Big Brother Bantu and Philip put me aside and said, "Look, small brother, give Nagwest Law the chance. I'm supporting Nagwest Law. Let's support Nagwest Law for now, and then when the time comes, it will come." I said, "Philip, no way, I'm going to contest." And Philip said, "I'll tell you what, because you were down to earth." He said, "You will lose this election, so why don't you support Nagwest Law?" And I said, "No." But then Philip said something to me. He said, "You know what? Stand for what you believe in. Whether you win it or lost it, stand for what you believe, and that's what Philip stood for all through the time. I know you have your own um, interaction with Philip too, and I'll just pass it back to you to see what you have to share. But Philip, please say.
Yeah, so what I got to share with him is that my interaction with him was when I was at DC 101. It was a new radio station owned by Fred Bass. And one thing he always used to complain about was why government officials didn't want to speak out when they know very well that they are on investigation, or journalists trying to get information from them. Why they don't want to speak up? They don't want to talk. And it used to get to him all the time. And I remember one time he came at the station, and he said he had come from one of the ministries, one of the government ministries, and he went there for an interview, and none of the officials wanted to talk to him. So he was frustrated. He said, "I don't know why people don't know. I wish we would just pass a law with Press Freedom Act that would make these people by law compel them to talk." And so that, of course, struck a nerve in me when he said that. And I believe that he was a man who believed in press freedom, and he believed that um, once you occupy the public office, yes, you are liable. That is, it is a responsibility to divulge any information that should be for public consumption. He believed in that. He believed in the fact that once you're a public servant, yes, you should be open for interview. You should be open for interview because it is a vote of the people that got the government there. And the government you work for, you have an obligation constitutionally to report back to the people, and reporting back to the people and answering questions. You have to do that through the journalist, the media, because the media is the mouthpiece to the people. And so that's one memory time that I had with him. And another time was at the time I have relocated to the United States, and we spoke over the phone, and he said, "Man, so you're ready now? You went to Bible school because I see you teaching." I said, "Yes." He said, "Man, that's a good transformation, but I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you, and keep us in prayer. We are still on the ground here. It's not an easy thing here to work and report the news. There are people who are still agitated in many ways. They agitate us in many ways just to keep us off track, but we are still persevering." And I could see and hear in his voice, even though we're on the phone, but I could hear from his voice the emotion he felt and the passion for journalism. And so his passing away saddens me in every way. At the same time, he is a Christian. He believes in Christ, and I know he's now resting in the bosom of Christ.
Amen.
Um, and as we talk about him here, we reflect on him here. Let us also know that he has other workers within the Inquirer newspaper that interacted with him, and he was able to train some of them. And you can see the testimony on and on Facebook. And just an example here, he is also impact. His death is also impacting the current Minister of Information, Lecture Hureni, who posted his picture way back. And here is Lecture Hureni with his bottle of stout. I believe this is what is his name? This guy, the photojournalist, Glenn Gregory Stem, right?
Oh, that's
Represent.
Gregory step right there. Okay, I couldn't make
Yes,
him up.
and
Yeah.
it is Philip in the blue, and I don't know this person here. I don't remember the person in the white t-shirt, but this is Jackson Seaton and Jay West is right here. Yeah, so this is a memorable picture. Ledger who posted, and he also said this too. He said, "We are saddened by your passing, PNW." That is Philip and Wesseh, aka the Gina. May our Creator grant your gentle soul eternal rest. When I read this, tears fell from my eyes, because this is how you remember a friend who had an impact. And I believe um, um, the minister has a whole lot. Hopefully, he can come on the program to talk more about Philip. But we thought that we will, gave his message that he gave to the public on his Facebook page regarding his memory about Philip. And so his death is felt all over. And as we can see, we are talking about him today. But Mr. Bantu, you are a veteran journalist. You had the press, Liberia. You have seen a lot of journalists grow up right in front of you, and you've seen some of them, you have taught them. And based on your passion for what you did, you were recognized by even the older generation of journalists, those who pass away and those who are still alive. Now, if you look at Philip as a whole, you look at his family life, you look at his work ethic and everything, what stands out so much to you that you believe that other journalists should emulate, whether young or those who are even in school wanting to be journalists?
Well, first of all, he took his work very serious. Because if you want to be a good reporter, be it in Liberia or anywhere in the world, you should be very serious in what you do and be faithful to what you do. Because some of our colleagues, they don't do so. They began to get involved into what I would call yellow journalism, okay, or in Liberia, we call it cartoon journalism. They were very serious always, always. One of the last things he did when they had the All Liberian Conference in March of 1990, when I went to the conference center, some of the brothers from Banca, oh man, they came with a kind of attitude. They were going to take over the PUR decks at the conference. Philip was mad like a pit bull. I have to grab him physically and put him aside. Say, do not fight these gentlemen. If you did, they wouldn't recall what they did to us. But they would say, well, we are so aggressive and we are the bad people. I mean, peace be to Arches. The main leader was Joe Moruba. He wanted to take over the whole thing, calling himself from Liberia proper. I said, Mr. Moruba, get out of my face. If they want to beat that, I said, no, brother. No, it's not in my vocabulary. Let's be gentlemen. He took the issue that for him being a journalist, it was his life. Okay, it was his life. And he loved the passion of being a journalist. He loved to do what he did best until his home going 72 hours ago. And that I saw in him throughout until he got sick, until he went to be with the Lord. Okay, and he will always check on me all the time because they were always concerned about me being arrested all the time, So they will ask me, oh, how do you do it? I say, well, first of all, I'm a Christian. I don't know when God may kill me secretly, but the Lord has always been guiding me. And each time we get together, we always discuss about information sharing all of the time. God, he will always be honest with what he do. And he do it to the best of his ability. So in order to be a real good reporter, be it in Liberia or Africa or America, you should stand for what you believe in and do it to the best of your ability for people to say, oh, yeah, goes a very good, respected journalist. Not people to talk bad about you. Even at one point, it came to a conference in DC. He came looking for me. Will be brother, my man, today. I'm there. We'll take all your money for you because we miss you big time. I mean, it was so loving, and so open. And unfortunately for me, my grandma's a crew. If it is a crew, so you will see that I'm his uncle, So, I mean, I love him for that. Yeah, he took the business very serious, up to the death. Even when he was sick in Ghana, at the time when he went for treatment in Ghana, I called him a couple of times, so we talk on the phone, I said, my man, you say, you want to talk about press? You get better before you go into to talk about reporting, Yeah, so that how he was.
Wow. Just to follow up on that explanation, I'm thinking, and maybe you can help us solve this puzzle. Who do you think can fill the shoes that Philip has left behind? A Liberian journalist.
Well, I cannot give you any response because the last time I was on was 2008. So
Yeah.
I can't give you any answer. But the Lord will provide. I can say that the Lord will provide. I mean, it is us now. We should write about his lifestyle, write about what he did. it should be documented, so young people can read it, can read what he did up to his death. All we can do is write about it, and maybe while lecturing sometime in some of our conferences or at some of our conferences or some forum in Liberia, can begin to talk about that. Because my grandpa told me, he said, well, a man who does not understand history, he's gonna be a lost person. Okay, because he left behind a very good, footprints. Okay, nobody can fill a footprint, but we can study or we can learn, from what he did. Okay, it could be documented. I mean, how I will put it.
That's true. And if you're just joining us, this is the Gracious Hope podcast here, live stream. And we are here every Saturday at 3 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. That is 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And in Liberia, it is 8 p.m. GMT. And we've been talking with veteran journalist, Mr. Isaac Bantu, and also human rights advocate, Mr. Alfonso Yino, with our co-host Reverend Suarez Dede. And we've been talking about the legacy of interning Philip and Wesseh, who passed away on Wednesday, September the 14th at the JFK Memorial Hospital in Monrovia, Liberia. We are reflecting on his legacy soberly because we know that he has impacted many people in his reporting and some of the unique roles that he played all through the entire years when he was a journalist. And also he's known for managing the Inquirer newspaper as a managing editor. Now, Mr. The Inquirer newspaper play a whole lot of role in advocating for justice, and the JPC, that is the Justice and Peace Commission, in relation with the Inquirer newspaper, they report a whole lot on atrocities, human rights abuse, and other bad governance issues that engulf our country at the time. Now, from your memory and from your writing that I saw on Facebook, what unique will you say about both the Inquirer and Mr. Wesseh's leadership?
Definitely. What I would say is that, I mean, what's very unique about Philip and the role that the Inquirer played is that, again, the war decimated a lot of media institutions in the country, drove a lot of journalists helter-skelter. And at the same time, warring factions were committing atrocities. I think one of the key things that I would emphasize about Philip is that he understood the importance of the media in society. And that understanding of the importance of the media in society led him and others to start the Inquirer newspaper in the midst of war, when people were being killed, when it was really dangerous to do so, to report on, the goings and comings of warring factions and their fighters, to report on the atrocities that were being committed in the country, to report on the conditions that existed in the country. The fact that he had the foresight to say, in the midst of this violence, in the midst of this abuse, the media has a role, is very significant, very profound to me. I mean, if he made no other contribution, I think that one contribution stands out. Just understanding that the media is critical and key in society, no matter what the circumstances were, especially so in the midst of crisis, in the midst of violence. The second thing that the Inquirer did, and that Philip did, is the accounting of what was going on in Liberia. Making an account of what was going on in Liberia is very important. I just heard Brother Bantu talking about we need to now document what he's done and his contributions. Well, Philip understood the importance of documentation, so much so that the Inquirer became the vehicle, in fact, for the Justice and Peace Commission, for advocacy, and many other activists in the country. So today you can go to the Inquirer newspaper, past productions and copies of the Inquirer newspaper, and you will see reporting of Alex, journalist Alex Red was chased out of the country. You can see how Noai Flomo was killed. You can see an account of the murder of Samuel Doki and his family members. That's an accounting. That's a keeping of record that our country needs. And
Yeah.
Philip played a significant role in doing that, in laying that foundation. Let's also talk about advocacy. Um, so Philip and the Inquirer didn't just report what was going on; they advocated what was right. And on Facebook, as you mentioned, Brother Red, he the when the government said this is what happened, Philip and the Inquirer were prepared to say, "Is that what actually happened?" So they went beyond what they were told actually happened and investigated. And if whenever they found out that what the government or whoever newsmaker claimed wasn't true, they reported the truth.
Hmm.
To the extent that, no matter that, I mean, they understood the risk, but they felt that telling the truth was more important. And that is the story I told on Facebook that we talked about earlier. With when really government security forces were going around and murdering people and lying and said this person was, he got killed because he was an armed robber, or an armed robber went to his house and killed him. Philip and the Inquirer thought the narrative was not true and they needed to tell the truth. They told the truth in an editorial. And you know what an editorial is?
Mhm.
A journalist. An editorial is not just telling an account from somebody. An editorial is the paper and the publisher and the managing director really taking responsibility and saying, no, we own this. This is what happened. This is the truth. Come to us, we take responsibility. And I thought that was profound. The Inquirer and Philip believed in telling the truth, in investigating and establishing what the facts were, and reporting them. So if we're talking about Philip Wissa's legacy today, by all means, we should document all of his contributions. But I think one of the most profound things, in addition to documenting his contributions, is challenging ourselves, challenging our colleagues in the media, challenging everybody in civil society in Liberia to really pursue the truth, to really advocate, to go as journalists, to go beyond giving an account of what newsmakers tell us and say, okay, this guy said they raised $500,000 and $500 million, and that's the budget, and that's what they're doing. Is that true?
Hmm.
The budget that was made to go that said this we're going to build a road here and it's $5 million. Is that what was actually spent on it? We have a responsibility, and that's why we are the fourth estate. That's what we call the fourth estate. With the fourth estate, because we are there's the executive, there's the judiciary, there's the legislature, represents different people. But there is the fourth estate, which is the press, that really is the voice and the advocate of the people. And we have to play that role as Philip's legacy. As Philip's legacy. Basically. That's mine. I mean, we did you as you know, Alex, and as you know, brother Dede, you all were in Liberia during the struggle. Journalists were grabbed and harassed and threatened and beaten, and media houses were closed on a daily basis. Radio programs were shut down, etc. And that's why led some of us in the Justice and Peace Commission to actually start the program that we did. I believe it was 1996 or 97 when we started the media protection program, to assist in the process. So when a journalist was attacked, when a media house was attacked, we would take action, we would go to court, we would do whatever. But you guys led the way, and Philip was a champion in that process.
Yeah, and talking about legacy and leaving a legacy and documenting legacy, both of you believe that it is always important to write about a journalist's work, his legacy, so that it can be as a history for the next generation of journalists. And that is very important. So it sounds like a proposal, maybe to the press union or to AJA or any of the media institutions, to begin doing so, because we have seen our journalists, most of them in the past, from Charles Brown to Clon Haney and a whole lot of lists, they pass away, and we don't have a definitive record keeping
Mhm.
to chronicle that entire work or legacy, so that when people, who are determined, or others who are determined to become journalists, can read from these people footsteps to empower, inspire them in their own pursuit of journalism.
That sounds like a proposal too, but the press union has a role to play, Aja has a role to play, and I agree with Alfonso. We also have a role to play, us on this platform right now. Alfonso just took my mind back to something before the Inquirer. Philip did not only believe in the importance of the media, but the importance of the independent media. And it's important to really stress that, because before the Inquirer, there was the Torchlight newspaper, and Torchlight newspaper was established by Prince Wyatt Johnson, and most independent journalists did not feel that Torchlight represented that presence of independent media. That's how the Inquirer came to the picture, even though Rufus Mama Dapo was the chief editor of the Torchlight newspaper, which Philip also worked with for a short time. But Philip Gabriel Williams, we can leave him out of this discussion. Philip Gabriel Williams and others decided to establish the Inquirer newspaper. That was January 1991. I came in April, June, around that time. Was established, but the eye died and left. But the Inquirer continued, because Philip knew that the independent media had to sustain itself by being credible, by being standard and ethical. And that's what Philip stood for. And for us who are alive today, can always reflect on that. I will keep another story for the next time, because we're going to keep this thing going. When Charles Taylor closed down media institutions, the Fonso can relate to that. On March 15, I was president then, closed the Star Radio down because, according to him, they were being supported by the international community, and the Cali radio station was all shut down, and the president had to get involved. Like Alfonso said, there was a risky time, but Philip knew how to navigate the whole media landscape, and that was something that he just did it so perfectly. All right, but the short of the long is, Philip is now gone, and I asked a big brother, I said, who he feels could fill Philip's shoes. So Alfonso, I want to put that question to you too. You know the media landscape then, and I'm sure you're following it now. Who do you think have filled the shoes that Philip has left?
So I don't want to name an individual. I think it's a collective effort. So even if we said, oh, Brother Swat Data is that one person who can fill the landscape, that's not sufficient. That is not sufficient, especially given the circumstances that we have in our country today. And even if we had the greatest democracy in the world, one journalist cannot do it all. So I think this has to be a collective effort. This has to be something that's drilled into the consciousness, into the practice and belief of people who call themselves, those of us who call ourselves journalists. We have to carry on. We all have to do it collectively. So if one media institution or one journalist was doing well and the rest of them weren't doing well, we're not making progress. So again, we talk about the role of the president of Liberia. We talk about the role of AJA. And for us, when I worked for the Justice and Peace Commission, that's the role we saw for ourselves as well. that we couldn't leave the media to carry the water all by itself. Hence, that led us to establish the Media Support Project. You have to support the media. It has to be a collective effort. So what role can AJA play? What role can the president of Liberia play in really making sure that Liberian media plays its role as the fourth estate in the country, as the organization that's not beholden to politics or political power, but that really is the actual representation of the voices of the Liberian people. And we just have to challenge ourselves. We just have to also challenge each other. A year ago, around the Agile convention in Trenton, I wrote a paper. Alex texted me and said, "Oh, can you come? Why aren't you here? You could discuss the paper here." Unfortunately, again, I was busy working. But one of the things I propose that I'll use this opportunity to propose today is that for us to sustain the independent media, for us to make sure that media people, journalists actually perform by the ethics of the profession, we need to set standards. We also need to provide support to the media institutions and individual journalists. So what I proposed at the time that I'll still continue to echo today is turning the president of Liberia into an actual union of workers, not just an association. As the president is today, it's difficult for the president to influence standards. It's difficult for the president to protect his members because the president is an association of media owners, of media editors, and of practicing journalists. So it's difficult for us to get the media owners who are members of the president to push them to pay practicing journalists well. So when journalists are not paid well, when they don't have any protections, when they don't have health insurance, when they don't have any life insurance, death coverage for their family members, guess what? Standards drop. They have to find those other things through other means, through other ways. But if you have an actual union that's fighting the owners to say we're going to negotiate a collective bargaining agreement with you, and this is the standard we set for all journalists to get paid, and these are the standards they live by,